This week, Valve fires back at Wolfire Games, Amazon is paying a massive fine, and Scarlett Johansson wants what she's owed. It's Sunday, August 1st, 2021, and this is episode 600 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or of course on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay. You can always go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, First Looks, and a whole lot more. And of course, you can find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. So, it's good to be back. We had another week off last week because we were at MetroCon with the Hotto augmented reality dodgeball game, which I've got to tell you, this is the first time that we've really gotten to see it in like full action. And what a ton of fun that thing was, Avram. Oh, you know me in augmented reality. What a great, what a great weekend it was.
What is that? So what is that like?
So basically, you've got a headset and an armband. I'm going to go through the pitch that I did 6 million times last weekend. You've got a headset and an armband. You can charge your weapon, fire your weapon, charge your shields, and put up a shield. You get 6 points, like skill points, kind of like think that it's an RPG, right? Or you're playing D&D. You get 6 skill points that you can assign however you want. So you can have more shields, you can shoot faster, you can recharge faster, and you play 3-on-3. 3 people on each side of the field. Normally it's a little smaller than a volleyball court, but in this case we shrunk it down to almost a square because that's the room we had. But so much fun.
So, is there an actual ball?
Nope. They are plasma balls that come out of your wrist.
So how do you see it? Do you wear goggles?
Yeah, there's a headset. And so in the headset, you see all around you, but then you also see all the augmented stuff, the shields, the plasma balls, the scores, all that stuff.
Is it a proprietary headset? What kind of headset is it?
Believe it or not, it is done entirely with iPhones and iPod touches.
You mean like strapped?
Yep.
Up there?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is an iPhone in a thing, and you're good to go. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
It requires a very sophisticated network of things to make it all work. But as far as the users are concerned, it's very straightforward and incredibly easy to play.
I was shocked the other day when I learned that there's something legitimately cool that you can do with an iPhone that you absolutely cannot do with any Android device.
Okay.
And I legitimately kind of want to borrow someone's iPhone just for this. So apparently recent iPhones from I think the 11 on have a LiDAR camera for the front-facing camera. And you can download an app which will scan your head and do a 3D model of your 3D selfie of your face, and then you can then take that 3D selfie from the app and turn it into an STL file and print it on a 3D printer.
Did I happen to see you post about this? Okay.
Yes, we have a story about it that our 3D printing expert Andrew Sink wrote. And so, when he first pitched me the story, I was like, this sounds great. And then he sent me the story and said, there's an iPhone app. I said, there must be an Android app too. And he said, no. And I went and I did some research. I couldn't find a workable Android app that does this. And I think it's because, I guess you really benefit from the LiDAR
Yeah.
doing it. But whatever the
Interesting.
case, yeah. So I guess there's some things you can do with uh with Apple devices. My life the last couple of weeks has been like just experimenting with various things like more 3D printing. So here's like the coolest thing I've 3D printed. I think it's a
Okay.
castle,
Oh,
um, and I just got this filament that is multicolor. So it's like it changes as it layers up. So here you can
okay.
see it's sort of like a silky, like metallic green going to a gold.
Yeah.
Um, right?
That's super
But
cool.
depending on how tall your model is, it may just be one color. So like here's this dragon that I printed
Sure.
that's just all gold. Now, um, the problem is, of course, when I try to print things that have supports in them, which I think we talked about this. We talked about 3D printers
Yeah.
the other day. It's a real pain because a lot of times when you're trying to remove the supports, parts of the model break off. So I spent like 5 hours printing my son a Luigi, and like as I'm going to peel the supports off, like the arms just snap right off.
Oh. Oh, it's the
Uh,
worst.
that seems to happen a lot. Like I think it's fair to say like 65% of the things I printed came out in such a state or quickly broke so fast that they had to be thrown away. So I wasted a lot of electricity, time, and filament. But you know, every now and again you get something cool. So like, my last weekend we went to visit some friends, and I made them a bunch of glasses holders that I had found online, where they're like, it looks like a head, and you just put your glasses on it. Um, so that was kind of cool, and I made them a tablet stand, and we made this little Mario trophy.
I love that.
So like, this kind of stuff. Uh, you know,
We tried
it's
to
fun.
uh we tried to do Hotto trophies for the thing last weekend for the two tournaments that we ran, and they didn't come out great. So even when you do it a lot, which Chris and Terry do, you can still hit problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's for sure a big challenge. Um,
Well,
but it's like everything else in tech. If it were easy, it would be no fun. So,
exactly.
uh, and then I've spent the last few hours trying to program some really fancy keyboard macros and auto hotkey. Um, if
Okay.
you've ever used that, which is a program like a scripting language where you can do really complicated stuff. And I took my little um, macro keypad that I built
Uh-huh.
recently, and have programmed it now so that each of these keys is a function key that is beyond what the keyboard has. So this is F13 and this is F24.
Got it.
So which Windows recognizes, because if you have a terminal keyboard, those keys will be recognized. Um, so I've been assigning different functions to them, uh, just because. And I swapped out my son's laptop keyboard today. His ThinkPad keyboard has been, you know, lost like four keys, and so
Oh no.
we got him a new keyboard
Okay.
uh, on eBay, and it was quite a challenge to replace it, but
I
we
haven't
managed to do it.
I
So
haven't done one in a very long time, but the one thing that I remember is hating myself.
getting it out was just really hard. There's something involving like trying to push it up to get some screws, and Fortunately, it didn't seem to matter if I broke the old keyboard by, you know, broke the top of it off to get to the screws. So I did, and they're
Uh-oh.
really
Well,
tiny ribbon cables that always scare me.
yeah, yeah. Aren't those always scary? Oh, I hate them.
Because it just looks like it's gonna, like, if you blow on it wrong, it's gonna break. The little plastic piece will break,
Yep.
and then your whole thing is trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been my time.
Well, it sounds like we've had some interesting experiences over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I guess we should probably get down to some news. What do you think?
Yep.
This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, desperately trying to find an Xbox, new games, or a whole lot more, you can get them all at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% on almost everything. To find out what products are available and the deals that are running, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So over the last couple of months, we have talked about what Facebook was considering an apocalypse level event, which was the release of iOS 14.5 and the do not track feature, the app tracking transparency. Facebook and Google to a lesser extent, but particularly Facebook, ran a pretty meaty PR campaign trying to discredit the concept and saying that it was going to be world ending, that it was going to be the thing that ended Facebook as you know it. And we might have to charge. They tried to pull that thing. Well, it's been in effect for about a quarter now, and Facebook released their first quarterly report since it went out, and apocalypse averted. In fact, they had a massive quarter, 54% up year over year. So over 2020, their 2021 quarter was significantly higher. So feels a little bit like a boy who cried wolf type scenario here, which for an organization whose trust level is already, how should we say, questionable, it's not a great look in this moment. What do you think? I think you're
I mean, obviously, look, Facebook. Nobody trusts Facebook. Also, why should we care if I mean, I understand why if I was an investor I would care, or I worked there I would care, but it's not the job of Apple or everybody else to be protecting Facebook's revenue stream.
True.
So it's not. I mean, you could argue back and forth about some of the industries that have received government bailouts over the years, and things where people said they're too big to fail or whatever.
Yeah.
Facebook is not too big to fail. Okay. No. If Facebook lost some money or even went out of business, which they're not even close to doing because they seem to be doing quite well, nobody would, life would move on.
Right. And very few would even shed a tear, I think.
Yes. I mean, people would stop using it. Facebook is like I wouldn't even say a guilty pleasure, since there's not a lot of pleasure. I guess it's a guilty use, right? Yeah. I use it every day, and every time I'm like, why did I do this? So, it's just, so I think if Facebook went away, people would say, first of all, people would find other ways to communicate, and something would take its place.
Sure, it always does.
So, uh, so that's for one. But yeah. Anyway, Facebook once again. I mean, they're never going to get anybody's pity.
Right. Yeah, especially with something like this, right? Where they really thought that this big PR campaign was going to work to convince people. I mean, there was a period of time where anytime I went and checked on a page that I managed, there was a big banner across the top. Oh, the world's going to suck for you real soon. It's like I don't think you understand, cuz no it's not. Nothing about anything I do relies on you being able to track me or the people around me. Nothing's going to change for me.
Right. And believe me, if Facebook started charging people money to use the service again, they would go elsewhere.
Yeah, that would be the end of it. So
It's
it
just
seems like
not.
they've. Yeah, it doesn't seem like the kind of service that has financial value to the users, right? I I can't imagine a scenario in which I would be interested in paying for it, especially with one of our favorite topics, and that's subscription fatigue. Uh, I
Yes.
cannot
Yes.
imagine in this era of subscription fatigue that now would be the
Yes.
time where it would be a success.
Now, I'm not to say that I really like Twitter, but I kind of need to check Twitter, right? For I never get anything actually useful to of actual. I mean, I end up getting sucked into all kinds of ridiculousness on Facebook, but I never get anything that's actually like useful for my life or career out of Facebook normally.
Right.
But Twitter, you there will be people who will post news on Twitter. And what I mean by news, I don't mean posting, doing stuff like I do, like post our news story.
Right.
There will be people who will say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you about this thing, and here's a thread about it here's a on Twitter," and that is the primary source of the information. That's where it
Yeah.
comes from. Like there's leakers who post leaked pictures and things directly to Twitter.
Yep.
So there's Twitter is actually a primary source of information sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it's the first place that information goes. Facebook, I don't really think so.
No. It generally feels like Facebook is the place that information goes to die.
Indeed.
So, not wouldn't be as great of a loss. But even when it comes to something like Twitter, if something were to happen, and you remember how much John used to rail against Twitter and their you know attitude towards a business model, if that were to catch up to them and they were to just disappear, somebody would be right behind. There there are
Yep.
other things that would fill the void. It's no big deal. No, none of these things have a true long-term monopoly. They may have an in-the-moment monopoly where, you think of a certain thing and you think YouTube. But, if there was something that went wrong over there and everybody left, Vimeo's right behind. There's other things that could take their space pretty quick. So,
Yep.
anyway, just an interesting report on on how Facebook definitely missed the mark here. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices, and you can get a special price right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram. It's been a little while since we've gotten to do this, but I think you've got
Yep.
something to show us.
Yes, so it's show and tell. So this right here is the latest notebook that I am reviewing. It is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga 6th gen. That means that there have been 5 previous generations of X1 Yoga, and this is the 6th. So uh, this is a really fantastic two-in-one. It has a lot going for it. So let's start with the good stuff. So first of all, this is aluminum here. This is what's called storm gray, the color is, but it's so if you like ThinkPad black, don't get this one because this is the only color it comes in. Uh, but it's obviously bends back. The 14-inch screen bends back a full 180 degrees, and you get several screen choices with it. You can, and it is 16 by 10 resolution, so aspect ratio. So this is 1920 by 1200 res, but you can also get 3840 by yikes, not for, it's like 4K, but a step above 4K because it's 1610. Um, but I wouldn't recommend that because that would probably wreak havoc on the battery life. And the battery life is really good. So on our test, this notebook got 14 and a half hours of battery life,
Wow.
which is fantastic. This configuration has a Core i7 1185 G7 processor in it. It's got 512 gigabyte SSD and 16 gigs of RAM. Now, you can buy this with 8 gigs. Don't do it. Nobody should be buying. Nobody who's serious about their computer today should be buying anything with less than 16 gigs of RAM. Um, it has a really fantastic ThinkPad keyboard on it. And of course, my favorite, which not everybody loves, the track point, but also a very comfortable touchpad here. Interestingly, also, it has a stylus in a stylus garage. So if you see over here, I'm trying to show is this little nut, this little section here. I got to look at it to pull it out, but it is a little pen. So the stylus is a little smaller than some of the competitors, like the HP Spectre X360, but the advantage is it goes into that little garage, and so you can very easily um, use the stylus for writing and drawing. Um, by the way, this is an anti-glare display that I have here. So um, even though this is I mean a touchscreen, it's matte. You can also get this with a privacy guard, which means if someone's sitting next to you on the train, you can limit the viewing angles. But today, I would try to stay away from people on the train anyway. Um, but the screen itself, this is the lowest end screen option on it, and the color is decent. It's about 71% of DCI-P3 gamut. It has good brightness at 350 nits, so that's pretty good. The overall performance for for a lightweight notebook, this is 3 pounds. An ultrabook like this is good. Obviously, it's not going to play games because there's no integrated graphics, but it's a really good productivity machine. There's also this on-off button here is actually a fingerprint reader, so you could kind of log in and turn on at the same time.
Definitely
And
a trend that I like.
yeah, some prior ThinkPads had the on-off button on the side, which I really did not like. Oh, and this has good port selection. So here you have a USB-A on this side, and you've got on this side 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, another USB-A, and HDMI out. So they don't skimp on the ports. So, I mean, it's not the thinnest that it could be. It's 0.6 inches, which to me is really thin. But, there are things on the market that are less than 0.6 inches thick and eschew giving you a USB Type A port, which most USB products still use. So I'd rather have the A port, to be honest. But this starts at $1,300. I definitely recommend, though, that you spend a little bit more to configure it up with 16 gigs of RAM, because you can't upgrade the RAM, it's soldered, and at least a 500 gig SSD. So that's just a quick look at the X1 Yoga Gen 6. ThinkPad X1 Yoga Gen 6. A review of it will be going up in the next couple of days on Tom's Hardware. But it's a really, really good business two-in-one.
I'm putting up that screen. It's a half second behind you. Yeah, it looks like a really solid machine. I'm impressed by the number of ports, because one of the things that we've been talking about for a little while has been the constant degradation in the number of ports available.
Yeah, it's just not
companies
worth it.
Yeah, as companies try to be the thinnest on the block, they end up dumping things that are valuable.
Now, it's not worth it. I mean, granted, at 3 pounds, this is not the lightest on the block. If you get the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, which I think may have brought on the show before, but that is now up to the 9th gen. Is just coming out with, I think, the 9th gen Carbon, which I haven't tested yet. The last I tested was the 8th gen Carbon. That is lighter. That is 2.5 pounds, so it's half a pound less than this. And probably for me, I would more consider that one, because I don't need the bend back screen. I don't need the two-in-one. However, some people really like this, especially when you combine it with the pen. So let's say you're going somewhere and you want to, I don't know, take notes or something. You can do it. So you want to draw something, whatever, you can do it. And the fact that this is such a nice anti-reflective display means that it's really easy to use like this, and you don't end up just looking at a mirror picture of yourself when you're looking at it close up like this, as you might on a very glossy display. So I think it's if you like the two-in-one style, which a lot of people do, this is definitely should be near the top of your shopping list.
Very cool. I like the style. Obviously, longtime viewers know that the computer that's sitting here next to me, and when I'm out and about, it's not unusual for me to pop this screen off and use it with the stylus. Same with my phone. So that's definitely something that I would appreciate. But I also know
you use?
It depends on what I'm doing.
The stylus, what do you do with it?
It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm taking notes in something like OneNote. Sometimes I'm drawing. Sometimes I'll have Inkscape open. I spend a lot of time in Inkscape. In fact, for the people who are watching the show, everything you're seeing except the actual live video is all from Inkscape.
See, the interesting thing about it is, I am of kind of a split mind, right? I love the idea of scribbling on my computer, but I have yet to see the app that really let me do what I wanted to do. And I think the main thing I would do with it is I would attempt and be frustrated to use the handwriting keyboard. Like, I would open up something that I do take notes in or do write in, like Google Docs, and I would just want to be able to write in that. And I'd want to be able to do it while I was standing up, because I think that is the use case where you really cannot easily use a laptop. Like, it's not easy to, assuming someday we're all going back to CES and waiting in line. I think about the scenario where I'm waiting in a long line to get into something for half an hour. I want to be writing an article, and I'm standing in line and moving. And so it's not easy to try and write like this. Where you're going to drop it, it's not pleasant, right? I mean, I've seen a couple of weird contraptions where people could wear a laptop around their waist, but
over your shoulders.
But it's not common. So
Yeah.
the easiest thing ergonomically would be to turn into a tablet mode, and start writing. But then I realized how bad my handwriting is, and the handwriting recognition, and it's disaster. So I don't know. For me, I just haven't found a. I would get one of these, and I would say, "Oh wow, I'm really going to change the way I work," and like that would last about a minute. Same thing with when I got the Galaxy Note phone. One of my phones a few phones ago was a Galaxy Note. I was like, oh great, now I'm going to take notes everywhere. That lasted about a day. So you know,
my most common usage, and again, I am fully aware that I am not normal. This is not something that probably anybody who's watching the show does, but I do a lot of wiring diagrams, right? When we're going and doing something like this weekend at MetroCon, setting up the Hotto stuff, we drew out a wiring diagram, and that's real nice to be able to do on a tablet because you're way less likely to lose that than a clipboard, which always goes missing. Guaranteed to disappear. So yeah, I do a lot of wiring diagrams and stuff on there too. But again, I know I'm fully aware that's not a normal use case for people. But anyway, that's one of my main use cases. I like this thing though. I've not personally had a yoga. I know you know that John had one a number of generations ago. He really liked his. I just never had that. I've kind of stuck to the removable screen devices.
I mean,
but
I love the removable screen concept. Microsoft hasn't really. I mean, I don't think they've really kept up with it though, because the most recent Surface Book update was when? I think they're
too long
a couple of processor generations behind, right?
Yeah, there's a patent out there. They just filed a patent this week. It looks like they're gonna have a new device with a new hinge.
I mean, I really do like though what Microsoft has done, which you really haven't seen anywhere else. Right. I mean, Lenovo at one time had, I'm trying to remember the name of it, a detachable like that, and that lasted one generation, and it was over.
Yep.
Because normally you have either this bend back design, or you have a tablet. Normally you either have a tablet first design like the Surface, like the Surface Pro or whatever, or you have a laptop first design like this. And since most people are probably using this primarily as a laptop, it's okay to have a laptop first design.
Absolutely. And yet, this one, somehow Microsoft managed to think in both terms, and nobody has stuck with it but them. It's just... and that was one of the things that Microsoft said when they launched the Surface brand, was that it was designed to inspire new thinking in hardware design. And it did, right? We've got all kinds of new hardware concepts that have come out since then. Companies try stuff. They do weird things. Microsoft's got the weird Surface Studio. They've got all kinds of oddball things. And I think that's been a good thing because, things like the yoga continue to improve and get better because there are companies out there doing weird stuff. So, you said that this review is coming soon?
Yes, we'll be up this week on tomshardware.com.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to reading it, and I guess I look forward to seeing what we talk about next. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Loot Crate. Whether you're a gamer, anime fan, or pop culture aficionado, Loot Crate has got a crate for you. They curate a bundle of collectibles, apparel, and figures that you can't find anywhere else. Crates get delivered to your door. It is like getting an awesome birthday present from yourself every month. And you can learn more about the crates that are available by going to f5live.tv/Loot Crate. So, on our last episode, we talked about some new stuff coming out of Valve, particularly I think it was the last episode, the Steam Deck, which is different than the
Steam Deck,
which is different than the Stream Deck, which is in my hand right now, which also announced a new model at the same time. But this week, Valve's public noise is different. Last time it was excitement about new hardware. This time it's annoyance at what they consider a frivolous lawsuit. So a couple of months ago, a suit was filed against Valve, particularly around the Steam store and its policies on free codes. Now, you may not know, but publishers and developers get free codes from the store that they can use for things like fulfilling Kickstarter agreements or sending to reviewers to be able to review the product, so that we're not, paying for a game that we may end up trashing. Things like that. But what some publishers have started doing is using those free codes to undermine the Steam store. They go out and they will sell the game for less than they do on Steam somewhere else, say the Humble Bundle, and they will then use their free codes to fulfill those orders. Obviously, Valve is losing money on that because they're paying for all the infrastructure for delivery and updates, and they're not getting a penny for the sale. And so they put in policies that basically say, you can use the free codes for free codes, or you can use them elsewhere, but you can't try to actively undermine the Steam store. You just can't, massively underbid what your price is on Steam. And so Wolfire Games, which just so happens to be the creator of the Humble Bundle, filed a anti-competition suit claiming that this was an anti-competitive move aimed at, stifling publishers or, whatever thing they're claiming. Valve's response this week, however, they've been quiet until this week, where they said, we have no responsibility to give you free codes at all. We do it simply as a courtesy. Other stores do not give you free codes. We could go to that policy too. We just wanted to continue to be helpful to our publishers. And so this is a nonsense suit, go away. And I think it makes sense, especially when you take into consideration that if it were 10 years ago, right, Steam was the place to be. There was kind of no competition for them. But today, you've got the Epic Game Store, which has been eating their lunch pretty hard. You've got things like, the Game Pass PC or Game Pass Ultimate. So through the Microsoft Store, you can get games. There are other ways that indie publishers can put a game out other than the Steam Store. So you can go somewhere else and deal with somebody else's policy. It's not 10 years ago, right? I don't know.
Yeah, there's no reason why you have to have your game listed in Steam. Mm-hmm. So, and this is this is ludicrous because they're violating a policy that is, like, they're obviously getting away with something, right? My guess is that a lot of these keys end up on key sites like Kinguin or cdkeys.com, and
Yeah.
so it's gray market or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you listen. If you're doing gray market stuff, you can't sue to complain about it, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it makes perfect sense to me,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the publisher is more than welcome to. It's not like you can't install this game if you don't have Steam. I mean, they could start their own distribution method of distribution if they really wanted to. I mean,
Sure, it's what Valve did.
I mean, it's not. I'm sure it's a significant investment to do it right, but I don't know. I guess it depends, but like they there's no reason why they have to use Valve. So the fact that Valve is giving them free keys, like good, like there's a useful use case in that. Like, you want to give them out to people that you want to test the game,
Sure.
and it would seem a little bit ludicrous and expensive for I'm coming out with a game and I want to send it to 50 reviewers, and now I have to buy it from I have to buy my own game to send to them. Right. So I think within reason, Steam is doing Valve is doing the right thing, giving these companies a certain number of free codes that because they want to probably give out some free copies of the game, but they should absolutely not be allowed to sell them.
Yeah.
That's a complete violation of the purpose of them.
Yeah.
And I would really worry that at some point that this causes Valve to cut back the amount of free codes that they give.
Right.
And that could, at Tom Harbor, we don't do a lot of game reviews. I mean, periodically we will do one. And periodically we also will do, a lot of times we also will do, for a major game, we'll do performance reviews. And so companies will send us a code or two and that we use for those purposes. And I would really, it would really, so like I take this a little bit personally, because if they put Valve in a bad position and Valve says, okay, fine, we're just not going to give you that many of these codes, or we're not going to give you any of these codes.
Yeah, or we're going to limit the number, because from what I can tell right now, there doesn't seem to be a limit.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, they have to put a limit, I guess, because how do they know that this isn't happening?
Right.
I mean, I guess the Humble Bundle one was pretty flagrant because they actually called attention to themselves.
Right.
But a smaller developer could probably unload a few thousand of these.
Sure.
If they could have thousands, could unload a few thousand of these codes on some CD sites, and make a few bucks that way.
Right.
But
essentially sell it for 5% more than what their cut is from the Steam store. They make more money. Yeah. Exactly.
So I really hope that this does not deter Steam, because that would be bad for journalists,
for sure.
Which ultimately would be bad for the consumers, because they don't get to read about it from as many people or get the information. So these folks are ruining it for everyone. So
right, exactly. And that's my concern, right? Because the publications that are going to get, if we look at it strictly from a reviewer standpoint, the publications that are going to get hurt are, you guys, right? Because if we're only looking at 100 keys, well, GameSpot is probably going to get the keys first.
Yeah, I mean, we are not as big of a game reviewer site as as PC Gamer, which is our
Right.
sister site, or whatever. So yeah, sometimes we have to really ask, hey, can we get this key? And it's not like, look, we're not going around asking for the keys of everything. We're not
Right.
trying to get free games to play. Like,
Right.
it's just that when a major game comes out, we want to have Jared, our graphics card editor, go and test it. And by the way, it's not just a matter of money, because it's not just like, oh yeah, so we could spend $60 and buy this game, and maybe we
Sure.
could fork over $60. These are codes that you're usually getting before the game
Ahead of
comes
time.
out. So no amount of money is going to solve that problem.
Right. Exactly. So you can't have stuff ready for the end of an embargo, because you can't buy it until after it's out. Yeah. And then,
Right.
You said getting to see more game reviews. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see, the professional reviewers, PC Gamer, for example. It's nice to see what they have to say, but I also like to see what Alante has to say, right? I like to see what Joe on our team has to say, because they take a very I'm a gamer, not a reviewer approach to the games.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
there'd be no way for us to get codes anymore.
yeah, exactly. So all I have to this is I'm glad Valve. I hope Valve prevails in this, because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't result in too much of a crackdown. But I can see that it probably there's a good chance that they will crack down, because someone has called public attention to the fact that they're ripping Valve off. Like, that's I mean, that's like, it almost sounds like one of those like mafia or drug kingpin movies where somebody's like, hey, don't ever steal. The big, like, Don is like, don't ever steal from me. And then you have someone jumping up going, hey, I'm stealing from you. I mean, like,
yeah,
like, that's like, don't, like, the Humble Bundle people are like, they're calling attention to it. So now I think they're going to have to respond.
Probably. Hopefully, whatever it is will be.
Change.
Hopefully, whatever it will be a reasonable response. Hopefully, they will prevail on this one, because for sure, this is the current situation seems to be good for just about everybody except the people who are trying to scam Valve out of money, and I don't particularly care about people that are trying to scam the system.
It's not a very humble bundle.
Exactly. So, I don't know. It all seems pretty cut and dry to me. And again, it's hard to say that a move is anti-competitive when there are several other opportunities, including the site that you represent as one of the competitors. So, I don't know. Seems pretty cut and dry to me, but we will definitely keep an eye on it as this goes on. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, and it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, and a whole lot more. You can use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. And to learn more about the software and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. The fact that they have a local office here in Clearwater always makes me happy. Anyway, that's not part of the topic. We just talked about a legal situation. Let's talk about another one. GDPR went into official enforcement effect in 2018, and since then there have been a number of fines. Most of them, in fact, almost exclusively, the fines have been around data breaches. This week's fine, however, is not. It is the largest ever GDPR fine. It is the equivalent of $888 million, which is a fun number. And it is against Amazon for the way they handle and process consumer data. Now, not a whole lot of information about what came out of this was released on the topic. There's some, but the complaint that started all this came from an organization whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce because it's not in English. But their consumer advocacy group who has on a number of occasions brought attention to concerns, and it's concerns that we've talked about in the past about Amazon and the fact that they collect a lot of user data. They're not transparent about what they're collecting and what they're doing with it, and that on several occasions it has appeared that they have used that data to further their own presence in their marketplace over the presence and performance of theoretical competitors. So, if you combine all of that together, it would suggest that the CNPD, which is the regulatory body in Luxembourg, which is where Amazon's European headquarters are, reviewed the complaint and agreed. Because $888 million is a lot of money. I mean, to Amazon, it's a little bit of pocket change, but you know what I mean. Even for a company that large, almost $900 million is not just a slap on the wrist. That's a big chunk of change. So it must be connected with something provable.
Yep. I mean, that is enough of a fine for them to actually consider doing something different.
And that's an interesting way of looking at it. And that's kind of the point,
$1 million,
right?
is a few $1 million is probably not enough for Amazon to change a business practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at that
This
point,
kind of,
it literally is just a slap on the wrist. They're like, oh, okay, well that's the amount we spent, last month on changing light bulbs in the offices. That's whatever.
right. So exactly. When you think about it that way, like that's, if it's material to the company, then they're going to change their practice. If it is not material, then they are not going to. So it has to be material.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that like $10 million would be really material to me. Like
right.
$10 million, I'd be very happy. But like, take $10 million away from Amazon, it's meaningless, right? So $888 million, like that's real money. That matters. So
that's gonna show up on a P&L report.
Right. So and presumably this isn't a one-time thing. If they keep doing it, they keep getting fined, right?
Correct.
So
up to 4% of global revenue, by the way. The maximum fine can be up to 4% of global revenue. And not profit, but revenue.
What's interesting to me about that is, I mean, I honestly don't know what legal, how this works, but like, how do they find out? I mean, I guess Amazon's a public company, so they could just read their public reports to find out what their global revenue is. But I don't know. What if a company wasn't public and didn't publish their revenue? Are they going to say, "Hey, you better tell us your revenue so we know how much to fine you"? So I don't know. It's interesting, and then they're fining them based on revenue that they didn't necessarily make in the jurisdiction, right? Because they're not saying 4% of the revenue that you made in the EU. It's 4% of the revenue you made everywhere, which is, well, whatever. Look, the point is that they're finding them enough money to make them change their practice. That is the point.
Yeah.
Right. I really can't feel any particular sympathy for Amazon. I don't know what it was that they were caught doing though. So it's hard to say. Uh, uh, you know,
It's one of my
but
things about the way the EU works that makes me a little uncomfortable is their own lack of transparency on stuff. It's
yeah, I mean, yeah. No, I mean there are definitely things that Amazon has done that there's a lot there that you can, you know. I mean, I like Amazon. I use it. I buy stuff
sure
from it
you're gonna
all the time,
our listeners are gonna hear about it in a second.
all the time. You know, problem. It's scary, especially scary how many times I'm just buying more stuff from Amazon. You know, the level of convenience just is life changing. Thursday night, I order rainbow filament for my printer, and Saturday morning it's there on my front doorstep.
Uh-huh.
And now while we're recording, this gnome comes out. So anyway, the
I love
so
that.
anyway, the point is there's a lot of Amazon does a lot of things that draw the attention of regulators when it comes to privacy. Um, I would really like to know what specific type of customer data we're talking about here. Are we talking about Alexa? Are we talking about like purchase history?
I think that's what it is. I
Amazon
think it's
has,
if
yeah.
I understand what this group, la whatever, French privacy group, I'm not going to try and pronounce their name, but their concerns seem to, and obviously I'm reading translations of French, which is always going to be a little off and weird, but from what from what I gathered from the initial complaint and from their website, their concerns usually surround like Amazon processing user browsing and search and purchase history so that they can enhance their own product mix at the expense of other sellers on the site. So at the
Well,
Amazon Basics at the expense of,
speaking of
my
that,
charge.
did speaking of that, did we ever talk about on a previous episode what happened with Aki and Rav Power?
We've talked about it a little. I don't know if we ever talked about it officially on the show. It might have been in the pre-show. And
So,
and that's a fascinating situation, right? And that might lead
yes,
into this topic.
yes. So, audience, if you're not up on what happened, this is quite a big deal. So, a several vendors. This happened, I think, the beginning of June, end of May timeframe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Uh, they Amazon, without really saying why, although there's some heavy rumors as to why, kicked kicked a couple of really major charging vendors off. People who make things like this, you know, alternative phone and laptop chargers. Two really, really good brands whose stuff I've reviewed, Aki and Rav Power. And these companies, like probably 99% of their sales were through Amazon, or if not 100%. So they basically killed these two businesses. Although Aki still has a website now and they're selling things through it, but I don't know how they're going to survive.
Right.
The and Amazon is a direct competitor with these brands. They
Right.
make chargers. And the alleged reason why they were kicked off is they said that they were manipulating uh, users to post positive user reviews.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say to that is that I have worked with both of those companies as a professional reviewer, and they never tried to, bribe me to give them a positive review. You know, they were nothing but polite, sent me the stuff, answered any questions I had. and made overall fantastic charging products, which I
Yeah.
tested, and some of which I still, I bought. This Aki, um, 12 outlet, 12
Hmm.
outlet, you know, power strip, and it's like the best power strip I've ever owned by far. So, anyway, needless not to go off on that tangent, but
And if their reasoning, if which Amazon has kind of confirmed, was that it was over review stuffing. If
right,
that's true, Amazon, you've got a huge undertaking, because I cannot tell you how many products are sitting in this room right now that came with little cards in them that said you'd get $10 off your next purchase if you put a positive review on Amazon.
right, right, exactly. So
It is
those,
such a common process that
yes, it's very common. So
they'd
they
lose
didn't.
all their
So
products.
right. So why are you picking on these two companies?
Hmm.
Um, it's I think it's very, and now it's all like no name. There's some Amazon basic stuff. There's
Hmm.
Anchor, and then there's all these like no name brands that are out there for chargers. So they basically ruined the charger industry,
Yeah.
for now. And I thought maybe they would like, let these companies come back eventually. Like, okay, we gave you a really big slap, and we put you in jail for like a month or two,
Right.
and now you can come back and don't do it again. Uh, but they're still gone,
Yeah,
and
it's been
yeah.
super quiet time.
So it's really it's very sad, and like that's something that I can see people being upset about because
Hmm.
they're not transparent about this, and then they're using. But I don't know if they needed to use an individual user's data to know that.
Right.
All they would need to know is, oh, people are buying these chargers, which they obviously know how many people are buying products that are sold through Amazon.
Right.
Hey, people are buying these chargers. Great, we'll make our own. And that is an issue, right?
Hmm.
Um, that is a serious issue when they're trying to compete with um, with the brands that are using their marketplace, and Amazon has such a big footprint that to it is difficult not to buy. It is difficult to run your
Right.
business if you're not selling through Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? What's the alternative? Perhaps Newegg, but they're not really known for chargers. I'm sure the level of traffic for that is much lower.
Sure.
eBay,
Maybe.
I mean, but it's not. I mean, yeah,
Possibly
you could
through
sell
the,
through Walmart.
I would say possibly through the Walmart third party marketplace. Maybe.
Yeah, it's just that Amazon is so. I get why people would be concerned about that, but on an individual level, I don't know that them Amazon knowing that I bought some chargers matters, right? And
Right.
if they use
It.
that data to show me ads everywhere I go saying buy a charger,
Yeah,
it
that
could
doesn't
really
bother
be
me either.
worse. It could
Yeah.
really be worse.
I think
It could
I
be.
think the concern I think the concern comes when and there have been a couple of regulators that have talked about this, right? Talked about the idea of, and I think we talked about it on the show at one point. The idea of a retailer not competing, like a mall not competing with its stores, which would preclude any white label product at
Yeah,
the
I
grocery
mean,
store. And we had that
yeah,
conversation about what a terrible idea that would be, but that there are problems that are posed by that because, Amazon knows more
it's
about what products are selling to make a decision on product mix than any of the other people that are selling, just like Publix or Kroger knows more about what products are selling in their stores to know what products to white label. I was in a store today, and Alante and I couldn't believe how many new white labels we saw on products. They had a white label Doritos.
Right. I mean, look, it's a little bit um, different because I think a lot of times in white label groceries, they are getting the same company. The
Uh-huh.
white label Doritos might actually be made by
By
Doritos,
Dorito. Yeah.
right? Um, so they're not necessarily putting the competition out of business.
Right.
Uh, anyway, yeah, it is very problematic, and I guess there's always, I guess the question is, where's the power dynamic, right?
Right.
Like the power dynamic of, I really don't know a lot about it, but the power dynamic of like Publix or Kroger or whatever, uh, with their white label, maybe you're still dealing with some very large companies when you deal with food sellers, right?
Hmm.
Like, is it uh, so? If your cereal is actually made by Kellogg's behind the scenes, like,
Right.
whatever, but like you can, if you're Amazon, I don't know how, they probably, go straight to manufacturers, and if it's an electronic thing, they're probably going straight to, find somebody to manufacture it for them in China or something like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, like they have a lot of power to take a smaller vendor and put them out of business. But I don't
Right.
see how my individual data is going to help them with that.
Well, it may not be individual data. It might be uh, trends that only they have access to then hurt the other sellers on the marketplace, which is what
Yeah.
this organization talks about. Is not necessarily that they're looking at individual sales data, but that they have access to all the trend lines and that they can then hurt their competition in their marketplace by going after them, which might be what happened in this particular case and might be what
Yeah.
happened here. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. Like you said, it's a ton of money, even for a company whose annual revenue is 197 billion. Um, just in case you're curious, this works out to just about 0.4% instead of 4% of their annual revenue, but uh, it's still a ton of money, especially when you take profit margin into effect. So whatever this was about, change will probably come of it. Although Amazon has vowed, as you would expect, to fight this. And tonight's award for irony goes to DRM Not Included, is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. In addition to your free shipping, you get a whole lot more, including free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription every month with Amazon Prime Gaming, and a whole lot more. To learn more about some of these features, to get quick links to them, and a 30-day free trial if you're not currently a subscriber, you can go to f5live.tv/prime. I thought you would appreciate that. So one of the things that we've talked about since the beginning of lockdowns has been the entertainment industry and the interesting response to everything that's happened. One of the things that we have noted that has been a big change for the industry, in particular theaters, has been this hybrid release, releasing in theaters and on streaming at the same time. This 2 years ago would have been absolutely unheard of. Nobody would have even considered it, and yet here we are. But one of the problems, there have been a number of problems. Obviously, the theaters haven't been particularly happy with it, and at one point, AMC said they'd never air another Universal film again until they came to an agreement. And that's probably what will happen here. Because one of the things that has been left out has been actual contracts with the actors. For those who have not been in the industry or follow the industry, most actors get paid based on theatrical success. They get a base pay, but the majority of their possible pay comes from theatrical success. And obviously that's undermined by a hybrid theater release if the streaming service or the publisher doesn't take additional streaming revenue into account. That's what's going on here. Scarlett Johansson has sued Disney over breach of contract for Black Widow. I think it was Wall Street Journal estimated that her personal losses on the hybrid release could be as high as $50 million, which is obviously a ton of money. We just talked about 888 million being a ton to a huge corporation. 50 is a ton to an individual. And so she has sued. My guess is what she's hoping is because Disney charges an additional $30 for the hybrid release on Disney Plus, she just wants that revenue to be counted for
so
theater
it's not
sales.
now?
Which no, it's not.
That's wrong. That's
right.
I mean, far be it for me though to feel too bad for an actor or actress who not getting all their points on the back end or whatever. But I mean, that's when you say she's losing $50 million, let's be clear, it means that that's $50 million. She believes that she should be earning $50 million more dollars than she is already earning from it.
In fairness, the Wall Street Journal believes that. She has not released an estimated number.
Okay, right. But what I mean is, it's not a loss like they took money out of her bank account. She did not have to finance the movie.
Right.
She surely made millions of dollars. Now, for folks who aren't familiar, actors and actresses get a lot of points on the, particularly if they're the star of a major motion picture like this. They get a lot of points in the back end, which means percentage of the revenue. Or is it percentage of the revenue or percentage of the profit? I'm not sure. What
I think it's percentage of the take. I think it's percentage of the box office take.
Right. So, and that is very meaningful to a lot of people. One thing I ended up doing the last 2 weeks is watching like every episode of the Movies That Made Us on Netflix, which is a really fantastic documentary show about making different movies, and they're constantly talking about how such and such person, to make the budget, such and such person said, okay, you don't have to pay me that much of a salary, just give me more points on the back end.
Yeah.
Right. And
that was actually part of the agreement for Ben Affleck to be in Jersey Girl, because nobody wanted to finance it. Kevin Smith actually talks about that.
That's funny. He gets his negative points, but it's also interesting who gets them, because I saw the documentary about the movie Dirty Dancing, and they were talking about how like some of the producers got no points, so they ended up making like nothing, but the writer or whatever got a lot of points, and so even today with I guess all the revenue that it continues to make from, I don't know, streaming or video sales or whatever, they're still getting paid like millions of dollars a year for a movie that came out 30 something years ago. But that's what they say anyway. So yeah, I get it. She should. I'm surprised that she's not getting the points on the back end for the streaming revenue. But here's another thing that you didn't bring up, which is that the movie overall has disappointing revenue after the first week. And many people in the industry feel like Disney shouldn't have done the $30 streaming, that they hurt appetite for it in the theater by putting it on the streaming. And so apparently they think that both were hurt. Like, oh, if you had not done this and then a few weeks later made it available for regular rental, you would have made money from that. If
Yeah.
you had not, so I don't know. It's hard to say what would have happened, but there's legit concerns in Hollywood about what these streaming deals do. This is a case where there actually is revenue to be recovered, though,
Right.
because they charge people $30 a pop.
Right. It's not like HBO
Whereas,
Max.
right, how does LeBron James recover, you know, recover all that Space Jam New Legacy money? Um,
I'll give him the 16
because
bucks he's owed personally. It'll be fine.
my son, by the way, loved that movie. I somewhat enjoyed it, and it is a horrible movie. Um,
That's what I've heard in general.
it is a horrible movie, but when you're a parent, if your kid watches it and loves it, and they haven't learned any bad words by the end, you're like, this is a good movie.
Win.
So it's in that respect, it's a good movie. But anyway, the right. So all these streaming things, like I was reading something. This would concern, like, so why should you, if you're not in Hollywood, care about this? Because it might affect the movies that come out.
Right.
For example, one thing
it might affect the caliber of people that decide to be in movies.
I mean, what else? Do you really think that someone who's a professional actor or actress is making millions of dollars a year is going to say like, well, I didn't make 50 million, so I'm retiring?
No, but they might go for a stronger upfront contract if they don't trust the backside.
I understand. I actually was reading something about this the other day, and that's exactly what's going on. Is that a lot of things they have I think Disney has a point system now where for things that are on streaming, where like for streaming only things like Falcon and Winter Soldier or whatever,
sure.
And but the points are based on things that I don't think are very transparent. Like they're based on if it gets an award, if it gets how many views it gets, which is not public, right? I mean, the revenue from movies is public, which is interesting, right? Because not every product has public revenue figures like movies do, right?
Right.
I mean, ask me how much money Lenovo, how many of these Lenovo has sold, or
right.
We'll never know.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if it's a public company, we might know their overall revenue, but we would probably
or how a division did.
Right. We would not get it. That would be considered a trade secret, probably, right?
Yeah.
Which we were just talking about. It's the kind of trade secret Amazon would know because they know how everything sells. But
exactly.
If it's something that's sold through Amazon, but here everybody knows how much a movie makes. For streaming things, it's much more opaque what a success metric would be. It's also not really clear if there's any direct money ever made from, like, I'm as a fan, I'm very grateful that they keep putting free extra. I wouldn't say free because we're paying for it. They're putting stuff on these services, but on the other hand, I don't know if they didn't have it if I would unsubscribe, right? So they're getting my money anyway, right? Like, I mean, eventually I probably would unsubscribe from HBO Max if there was nothing on, if there wasn't a lot of stuff on there I wanted to watch. There's so much stuff on Netflix that I would probably they didn't need to create everything that they've created, right? And Amazon Prime, you're getting to watch videos when you probably would have already bought Prime just for the shipping.
Right.
So it's interesting. Like, how do you, if you're Amazon or you're Netflix or you're Disney Plus, how do you actually determine monetary value of having a movie or a show on your service if people aren't paying for it specifically?
Right. Yeah.
People watching it is not necessarily an indicator of revenue because so what? They if they didn't watch it, I
Would they have
still, if they didn't watch
unsubscribed?
it, I still get their money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Would they have
we're trying
unsubscribed
to
if they
predict.
didn't watch it?
That's the only metric,
Right,
and we don't. And there's no. It's really hard to know that.
right.
I mean,
Whereas it's really
even
easy
if
to
I were,
know how many people went to a movie theater.
yes. So I get that it's really hard for. So I think a lot of these things they do have to pay people more upfront. But as a consumer, I also be worried because they cannot possibly be making as much money on this stuff. So
Hmm.
the quality I mean, it's amazing the quality that have gone into shows like Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
right? But
Stranger
at some
Things.
point, the bubbles gotta of this entertainment's gotta burst.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. Like I would be really, for example, I'm really worried about Dune. Now my understanding is that I think Dune may actually have been pulled from HBO Max, right? I
Hmm.
think they is that isn't that the latest that they're
Yes.
going to do an exclusively theatrical release?
Yeah. And I read somebody's commentary where they said that it's uh for the movie for the for the story, uh having a theater full of people in masks is actually kind of the ideal situation.
I mean, the reason why, if you care at all about seeing Dune, you should care about that is that this movie is only part one of two, right?
Hmm.
They only filmed half the book. Did you know that?
Yeah.
So if you want to see the whole Dune book adapted, you got to root for this movie to make some money,
Right.
because I imagine that Warner Brothers would probably say like, "Oh, this didn't make enough money. We're not paying for you to film the second one."
Narnia. Oh, sorry. I
They
definitely,
made like
I
three or
definitely
four
just,
Narnias, didn't they?
yeah, but they definitely didn't finish it out. They definitely gave up before they were done. Because by the,
Yeah, I mean there've been a bunch. There've been a bunch of series like that where
yeah,
they had intentions and then they gave up of doing a whole bunch and gave up before they
right,
were done. So yeah, if you are to care about being able to see that stuff, then you probably want it to make some money,
right,
right? I mean, the reason that we get to keep seeing all these MCU movies is they keep making money.
right.
If it wasn't making money, they wouldn't keep making them.
They certainly wouldn't have the intense release schedule that they've got right now. Every time you blink your eyes,
Right.
there's another MCU title coming out.
So yeah, I mean, now on the other hand, just to throw another tiny wrinkle into this conversation, um, I mean, what Disney said here is a little bit, playing at the heartstrings, right? They said the lawsuit is sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh, come on.
Right.
Like, like that
If
doesn't mean you shouldn't pay her.
if this was HBO Max, that response might be different. But they charged an extra $30 to watch this
Right.
movie. This isn't like a free bonus. This isn't Boss Baby on Peacock, right? Where it just showed up because it did. This was an extra purchase. Treat it as
Right.
a theater ticket.
Right. Right. That's come on.
Yeah.
That's bogus.
Yeah.
Also, if that were the case, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, because if they were really worried about people getting COVID at the theater, then they wouldn't have released it to the theater at all.
At all. Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly.
they're not worried about people going to the theater. But you know what? I can't blame people for being worried about going to the theater. Like, we are now.
Sure.
I mean, this is happening at the backdrop of, although when Black Widow came out, we were actually at a low point. But the last 2 or 3 weeks, right, there's a huge surge with a Delta variant. So there's a strong possibility that this will have a very negative effect on theaters at a time when people were hoping, the theater industry was hoping people were going to come back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's if people. I mean, Disney may be right that a lot of, in one sense, that a lot of people are wanting to not go to the theater, and that may be why that may be the ultimate reason it performed poorly in the theater. But you gotta, what this is about is this lawsuit's about a contract.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Exactly. There was a contract in place. The meeting of the minds involved certain requirements, and that involved a wide solo theatrical release. When those changed, the contract needed to be revisited. It wasn't, and so here we are. That's the crux of it. Yeah, there's not a whole lot more to it. Yes, there's lots of stuff on the fringe of it, but at the core of this, there was an agreement. The agreement was changed underneath without a new meeting happening. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. And she's not the only one. Cruella is looking at a similar lawsuit. I think it's Cruella. This will not be the last time we hear something like this. The industry needs to figure out what streaming looks like going forward to be able to handle this stuff, and it's as simple as that. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We always appreciate it. Interesting that as I'm saying that, one of our live channels just turned back on because we did disappear for a little while. That's pretty funny. But anyway, thank you for our live viewers who joined us. We always appreciate it if you didn't join us live and would like to in the future. Barring weird technical difficulties where we disappear for 7 minutes, you can go on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern to f5live.tv/join us and chat with us during the show. Give us your feedback. We always love that. If you can't do that, that is okay. PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe has all of our shows, including F5 Live and the Piltch Point, and you can find all of our podcatchers that we're on and all of that stuff. Quick links, because that's what it's about, making this easy to watch and listen. I believe that next week is a normal week for us. So we will be back like normal next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.